My name is Alex Luther, and I'm the editor-in-chief for Beaver's Digest.
And I'm Jennifer Coffman, a volunteer writer for KBVR TV.
And today we're here to talk about a topic that's very special to both of us, musicals.
Theater is a widely complex and ever-changing idea. There are high-end Broadway shows, the off-Broadway, the off-Broadway, the West End. Long before there were specific distinctions between the locations, there was the theater of ancient Greece. Ancient Greece was rich with culture and the arts, including the theater. This was a broadcasting of music and dance mixed in with stage comedies and tragedies from the 5th century BCE. While the musical patterns of this era didn't continue, it's easily regarded as the root of the current theater sensations that happen around the world. Jumping ahead to the 20th century, we begin to see the roots of many modern musicals. World War I was a new wave of theatergoers with the rise of the princess theater shows, which featured lighter and more accessible entertainment while removing the awkward pauses that would happen between the story and the songs. This lighter style became very popular during the Great Depression in the 1930s, as it was a form of escapism for the struggling audiences. Starting in the 1940s, we saw more musicals that incorporated the songs as a way to move the plot forward instead of keeping the two very distinct. During the 50s and 60s, musicals began to get much more elaborate and inclusive in their casting, leading to shows like Guys and Dolls, Fiddler on the Roof, and Hello, Dolly. As these productions became more and more elaborate, the songs did too. The 70s and 80s introduced the concept of rock and mega musicals with ambitious set pieces and pounding music. Some of these include Grease, Phantom of the Opera, Jesus Christ Superstar. The 1990s is the decade where Broadway became very contemporary and exclusive, with skyrocketing ticket prices and even productions made by Disney, including Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, The Little Mermaid, etc. Finally, during the 2000s, we've seen many unique musicals brought to the stage, as well as several adaptations of popular movies. Some examples from this time include Urinetown, Beetlejuice, Avenue Q, The Book of Mormon, and even Shrek.
Of course, the majority of this history happened way before our time, but for me, when I got into musicals, it was with The King and I as a kid. My parents took me to the local theater production at our community college, and I was absolutely dumbfounded and awestruck by what I saw on the stage. I was totally entranced by the music, the costumes, the storyline, and at somewhere between 6 and 8 years old, I all of a sudden fell in love with the theater and could never get enough. Even all the way into my 20s, I am still a theater nerd at heart who's obsessed with local theater and seeing all these wonderful productions come to the stage.
My first introductions with musicals were Mary Poppins, which I saw on an off-Broadway production in 2007-ish, and going to see Wicked with my school Signet group in around 2012. Both of these were examples for me to go and see these shows with the awe of a child seeing an actress fly off the stage into the audience, and also being able to interview with the cast and the crew and the pit of Wicked after seeing the show.
There are so many iconic musicals playing today, but we've had to narrow it down to just a few for the current hits so we can talk about what's actually out in theaters and what we really appreciate. Starting off, we have Hamilton. Even if you know absolutely nothing about musicals, you've probably at least heard of Hamilton. If that was through your own discovery, a recent video released of the last original cast performance on Disney+, or that your friend could not stop talking about it, you at least know of it. And you know Lin-Manuel Miranda, the mastermind behind all of it, who not only composed and wrote the entire soundtrack, but starred in the lead as Alexander Hamilton in the original cast. His immense amount of work thrusted him forward to many other projects like writing the Moana soundtrack and onto one of the most prestigious acting roles ever as Jack and Mary Poppins returns. Hamilton is truly a marvel of the masterpiece in theater because of how absolutely crazy the concept is. It's a retelling of the founding of the US, but it's told through hip hop, rap, and dance. It also roughly focuses on the life of first Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton, who, let's be honest, no one knew about until this play. The unique part of this story is it's being told through rap, a music genre based on breaking rules and creating new standards, which is exactly what the Founding Fathers set out to do. It's so impressive that the brilliant minds behind this musical made such a gripping, entertaining story, but it's even more crazy when you take into account that every line of dialogue is spoken in songs. Let me put it this way. Most musicals run 3 hours long and have 45-minute long soundtracks because there's time to talk, time to sing, have the story move forward. But Hamilton is a 3-hour-long show with a 3-hour-long soundtrack. It's all music. From its conception in 2015 to its last original cast showing a year later, and even now with this entirely new group of actors, it's one of the most successful musicals to be released in recent years.
One of the big audiences that was hit with this were middle schoolers to high schoolers and all ranges. But these groups were able to take this in and learn history through a different light.
What? John Adams.
For me, it was getting the CDs and listening to it during long car rides where it would be CD 1, CD 2, just straight. And buying the books and the actual history book that it was written based on to learn more and more about history before we got to that point in the curriculum.
For me, Hamilton Obsession came along by a recommendation by a fellow friend who loved the theater. I was told I needed to listen to the soundtrack. It was before it blew up, and I spent the time around a Christmas break listening to it from start to finish again and again and again, and became thoroughly obsessed over and over every single time, to the point that I asked my parents if maybe someday we could see it, and I was surprised with tickets when we were in New York a few months later. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, getting to watch it in person with all of those actors on the stage, pouring their hearts out and leaving every single moment out there for all of us to experience and enjoy. And one of the best parts about this musical, the cast is consistently focused around having diversity out on the stage. What better way to tell a story that left people out of the narrative initially in history by bringing those people into the narrative now? It really does put a whole new perspective on the start of our country. Now on to Dear Evan Hansen, the titan of sad boy stories. One only needs to take a listen to the vocals of Pitch Perfect's Ben Platt to know this story is going to be a modern tragedy. Dear Evan Hansen is one of those stories where everything that possibly could go wrong does go wrong, but makes the most of comedy to keep the tone light when it needs to be. The play focuses on Evan Hansen, a student who struggles with social anxiety and accidentally finds himself trapped in a lie. His lie is that he was best friends with a fellow student who commits suicide, and as a result, he gets pulled deeper and deeper into making the past and an influence on the future. Despite his mistakes, the play goes on to show the importance of authenticity and showing the realities of destigmatizing mental health in our society. This is all against the backdrop of how dangerous social media is in misconstruing reality. With all of this, there's this beautiful soundtrack of music with all kinds of vocals ranging from major choral sections down to intimate moments of one-on-one time with the audience, all with Ben Platt's beautiful voice guiding us through this story. Ben Platt as Evan Hansen is a phenomenal role and is made perfectly for him. The film will be released September 24th, 2021.
I think one of the most interesting things about this production is that, at least with the original cast, there's only 7 or 8 cast members, and their blend of voices is able to amplify into this humongous sound that's beautiful and super well blended. I got to see this show right before the pandemic with my friend for her birthday, and I hadn't gotten into it before that, and then I went and saw it, and it was amazing, and I started to delve more into it and be able to see how it wasn't making a mockery of any mental health issues, but it was just bringing them into a different light and presenting them as ways that it can go wrong and how to fix it.
I haven't been quite so as lucky as to see this one quite yet in theaters, but Dear Evan Hansen holds a special place in my heart with the music. On one of a bad day in my freshman year, all of a sudden this song called Waving Through a Window came through on my suggested playlist. I was very confused, knew my Spotify that was listening to me all the time, screaming whatever Broadway song was on in my car or in the shower. But at the time I was confused at why I was getting a song from a play I hadn't even heard of.
From way through a window, see. Is anybody waving back at me?
Beyond all odds, I became extremely obsessed with Ben Platt's absolute phenomenal voice and the amount of emotion he can put even between my phone and me sitting miles and miles away. All I cared about was being able to feel that moment and be able to find the way to move forward through whatever bad day I was feeling. And whatever that moment was, in that exact time when I was going through that moment my freshman year, that was the song I needed to hear that particular day to move forward and to find my own strength to continue and know that my feelings and my hopes and dreams are also seen by the world. Moving on, we've now got Wicked. Wicked is an unfamiliar take on a familiar story. Based on the book of the same name by Gregory Maguire, it is set in the magical world of Oz. This sensational musical focuses on Elphaba and Glinda, who later become the Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda the Good Witch, respectively. Also in this production, Elphaba is played by the famous Idina Menzel, who also voices Elsa in the Frozen movies. Since its 2003 premiere in the Gershwin Theater, Wicked has become one of the most well-known musicals of all time. This show has brought in over $1 billion in revenue as of 2016, becoming one of only 3 musicals to do so. The other 2, Phantom of the Opera and Lion King. In 2019, it officially overtook Les Miserables as the 5th longest-running musical production on Broadway. With the continued success of Wicked, it's no surprise that it continues to be one of the most talked about and popular musicals, as per the song says in the show called Popular.
Popular, I know about popular.
And frequently ends up on best of lists. Hollywood has had a harder time with an adaptation of the musical, with a film version of Wicked being in development since 2004, but no current sign of a release date in sight.
I think one of the big draws in of Wicked is that it's universally known. Everyone knows the story of Dorothy and the tornado, but we're seeing the other side to the story now. It's something that was talked about to me before I ever saw it and before I ever knew that it existed. And then I was able to go and see it and interview with the pit and meet the current Elphaba at the time. This is very dear to my heart, and I was able to see it once again when it came to the Keller Auditorium in Portland.
Wicked and I have an interesting history together. I had an English teacher who was obsessed with it, and I thought she was kind of crazy and was like, what's up with this musical? Maybe it's not quite as good as you think it is. Of course, I was very wrong. I listened and quickly became very drawn into what is this world of a story that we seem to have never heard, but is so impactful to the rest of our lives in terms of the concept of the Wizard of Oz. And beyond that, I'm a very big fan of Kristen Chenoweth, and of course, Idina Menzel. So watching and listening to clips from the original cast and seeing how those two interacted on stage immediately intrigued me. In high school, I was super lucky to be able to see it in Portland with my family, something that I had been wanting to do and fulfilling a dream of mine for quite a while. And the ending had me in tears, both happy and sad at the same time, with full-on goosebumps and chills, one of those moments where you can't fully appreciate the absolute masterpiece that is a musical such as this, and just showing a completely new side of a story that we all think we know. But do we really know?
Obviously, there are thousands of musicals that we would love to talk about, but we just don't have enough time. In place of that, we will do some rapid fire. First, Matilda.
Matilda. For a villain that we can all hate together, we have the evil teacher and the student who just wants to help all of the children realize that they have amazing dreams and the power within them for when they grow up. So we're all going to be revolting children together as we watch this. We can all hate the Trunchbull together, and we can all see ourselves in Matilda, who never gives up and proves that we all have the power within us to make change. Newsies.
The iconic Newsboys. This really just gives us a chance to be part of a revolution and to be part of these newsboy strikes and live in 1899 with them. Sweeney Todd.
The Demon Barber of Fleet Street. This is the musical that will get you all up in the creepy feels. We're gonna feel Joanna, and we're gonna feel the music rising within us, and the dark, intriguing revenge and slightly cannibalistic suggestions. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's one of Sondheim's most beautiful and wonderful pieces. It's one of his many masterpieces that he's given the world of musicals. Other ones include Into the Woods, Gypsy, West Side Story. This is one of Sondheim's most iconic musicals that you don't want to miss. Mamma Mia.
All things ABBA. A lovely story about some relationship issues and a very loving mother and daughter bond where they have dreams that they share together and they can forever be the dancing queen. Chicago.
The Merry Murderesses. This musical is all about women who killed their husbands or boyfriends and are on murderer's row. Set in the roaring 20s, it's all that jazz. They both reached for the gun and will never know who was the actual murderer and who was at fault. Plus, one of the most iconic tango scenes of all time on screen or on the stage. It is one of the most iconic musicals that you will be able to experience.
Thank you for watching this episode of Geeking Out About It. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out the playlist and the other KBVR TV content. Be sure to follow KBVR on Twitter and Instagram, as well as Twitch.
If you're interested in more things student lifestyle, you can check out Beaver's Digest on our website and on our social media platforms to keep up with all things Oregon State student life. I'm Alex Luther.
I'm Jennifer Coffman.
And we hope to see you on the next episode of Geeking Out About It.